What is it about journeys and exploration that excites us? Is it experiencing new things or breaking out of the day-to-day reality that defines us? Is it the journey or the destination? Damned if I know, but I'm gonna die trying to find out. The world is a big place and you're never gonna see all of it. Your rig is a lot of things, among them freedom. Freedom to roam, freedom to explore. But where to explore and how to explore? That, my friend, is the question. That is the quest. Join me as I traverse the path less traveled in a quest for nothing more than the journey. I'm Dominic Wilbrink, and this is an episode of the High Class Hobo. Hey, and welcome back to the final episode of what has been the epic timing belt replacement video series. This is episode 12, and then after this we start getting into some other stuff. Grab a coffee, it's going to be another long one as we go through every detail of doing the timing belt, and so we'll just go ahead and get into that right now. Alright, well, as usual, we start with hopefully a relatively clean working area, and also because it's wicked cold when I was doing this back in January, we went ahead and warmed ourselves up quite a bit. So I think I'm checking torque specs and stuff like that for what I'm about to do here in the final part of this video. One thing, I'm running a t-shirt contest, so if you are the 100th non-consecutive person to comment on this video, you'll go ahead and win a t-shirt. You can comment as many times as you want as long as it's not consecutive, so you can't go 1 through or 99 through 100. You got to be at least somebody between you to count. And then so go ahead and watch to the end of the video. You'll see the details on which shirt I'm giving away, and tell your friends. So it's that's the only rule, is you can't be consecutive. So anybody who comments is in the running. Just the 100th person to comment gets that. So build up those comments and win that shirt. All right, so here we are getting started with hoses. It looks like. I think I went to go change the thermostat, and the one that they sent me, actually, even though it said it was for this vehicle, was different enough that I did not do the install on it, and to this day I didn't actually change the thermostat back. I did return the one they sent to me though, so let's see if that's what this is. Okay, so I couldn't find the torque spec for this, so I took a torque wrench, and I started with my smaller one. I worked my way up till I maxed that one out, and it was still not quite the right torque. So my thought was, I'll find the torque that they break on and just kind of going like 1 Newton meter at a time. So I ended up the lowest setting on my big torque wrench, and it's basically 34, just shy of 34 Newton meters, and that's what they broke with. So that's what I'm going to torque those back down to, is basically the lowest setting on this torque wrench. And then that should be, I guess it should be good enough. It's held up just fine all these years, or at least as long as I've owned it, and I don't see any evidence of a leak, so we're just going to go ahead and do that. Again, that's 34 Newton meter. So I was wrong. It wasn't what I was doing right there, but it looks like I'm actually trying to take it off to replace the thermostat. So as I recall, the thermostat, there we are. Yeah. So I was half right. Okay, so here is the new thermostat. Here's the old one. And the old one has a rubber gasket housing. The new one does not. So I'm going to gently see if I can get that housing off. If I can, I'll put it on the new one. Otherwise, I'm going to return this one and stick with this one for right now. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. I was just, at this point, I had everything torn apart. Thermostats are cheap, and so I thought I'd just replace it. So it doesn't need to be replaced. So let's see what happens. Well, that seal is on there really good. I could probably pry it off, but I don't want to damage it. And I do want to see if I can get the truck up and running. I can see a little bit of gunky buildup on that side of the rubber right there. So I probably will order and replace this and clean it up a little bit while it's open. But I think that's a little bit of, I don't know what that is, a little bit of residue in there. So I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to replace it, but I'm just not going to replace it today. So we're going to go ahead and put this back and put it all back together and keep moving. Spoiler alert, I totally have not replaced that yet. It's still the same one that's in there. It seems to be working fine. Maybe if I have some mythical free time, I'll go back and do it. So there was a little bit of like black residue that was up inside the springs on the thermostat. I cleaned that out, rubbed it together in my fingers, and it's like
black rubber, probably silicone, but at least that's my suspicion. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's something to keep an eye on. I can see a couple of pieces. I'm going to check the clean end here. There's just a little bit hiding down inside the housing itself. So I'm going to clean that out, put it back together, and when I replace the thermostat later, see if there's any more of that gunk. There's another little piece right there. Not sure what that's from, but something to be aware of, something to watch.
In hindsight, I think that was from when I was cleaning up the thermostat, or sorry, that whole housing, getting the seal on there and stuff like that, which I think was the last video when I cleaned that up. There I am again with the Tin Man. Big fan of that stuff, just because I live in the freaking north and they love freaking salt, because they like destroying our vehicles so that we have to buy new ones. And you know, if you're an environmentalist, I'm sure it's great for the environment to have road salt all over, getting into the drain, going down the drainage culverts, getting into the river and out to the ocean. Lovely stuff. I'm a big fan of road salt, if you didn't know. Alright, the fan. Those bolts right there, I obviously couldn't torque them, and to this day I still take the time to check those whenever I do an engine compartment check. I check to make sure those bolts are tight. Just a good thing to do anyways whenever you're opening the motor up. You could stand there, play with your phone while you're filling the gas tank, or you could walk around your vehicle, take a look at everything, open the engine compartment, make sure everything looks like it's good, kind of know what's going on with your vehicle. That's obviously my theory. Those guys are tough to get on, those little screws. Obviously they do eventually go on, but it's definitely tight quarters for a guy with regular size hands. I can't imagine if he had big hands and thick fingers. Well, now is a good time to mention it. It is there's a contest going on. If you hadn't already heard, so go ahead and comment below and be the 100th person to comment and win a t-shirt. Again, 100th non-consecutive comment.
Well, that was a bugger, getting those on there, but it's on there now, down solid, and yeah, I think they make a special tool for that. If I ever do that again, I think I'm gonna get the special tool, because that was tough. All right, so that was step 17. So now it's on to step number 16. I gotta go figure out what step number 16 is.
I don't remember what step number 16 is either, but I do remember it being cold and constantly going over to that heater to heat up. Yeah, the fan housing, that's what it is.
Alright, so step number 16, at least by my reckoning, going backwards, is the fan shroud housing. And as I recall, we got these little brackets right here. That's where the screws go in. And so I just got this thing loosely placed in there for right now, and I'm gonna get the radiator. I'm gonna drop the radiator in, and then those bolt onto the radiator. And as I recall, the radiator can just rest in there, and I'll figure it out as I go. I don't honestly remember exactly how it all sticks back together.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of hooks on the radiator that kind of hold it in place as you're setting it in there, so you can work it and whatnot. So.
All right, so right here is the hook that I was talking about, that the radiator rests on when it's placed in there temporarily until you get the bolts in place. So I'm gonna rest that. I'm gonna drop it down and rest it on those hooks, and then bolt it in place.
Easy breezy.
Okay, and then those hooks I was just talking about. There is, let's get a light in here. There's a hole right here. I believe that's one. It's the elongated hole, the slotted hole, and another one right there. And that's what those are gonna go, those hooks right there are gonna go into. All right, let's put it in place.
And maybe put it in place. Work around everything. Try to be careful not to hit any of the aluminum.
Okay. Now I've got it resting on those hooks, which is kind of hard to see in this light, but just like that. Now I just got to get the bolts fed through, which I'll find the bolt holes. I think that one's right there, and the other one's down here because this is where I had to take the bumper off. And man, we're getting close. That's it's a good sign getting that. I think that's the last of the big components that's got to get it now. It's all just little belts, or not belts, but just hoses, really. All right, let's get this done.
Taking forever to get it done. One thing to mention on this is the total time involved, even with this video, we're around 228, 230 minutes of video for all 12 videos in this series. And a lot of it's sped up at 15 times speed. So this is a long, big job, which is why it costs so much at the shop. Obviously, it takes a lot longer if you're the one doing it yourself. So the recap on this to everybody is, you're gonna be getting into it, and that's why this video series is so long. It's not the type of videos I like to make, but this is the type of job where a guy like me needs a step-by-step process, and so I'm showing every little step that's involved in this to hopefully help somebody else out with this same process, because that's what this is all about.
Okay, that was step number 15, and I've got covers on all of the openings in the radiator, except for I missed one right there. All right, no, that's never mind. False alarm. Just from my angle, it looked like it was. But anyways, so that was number 15. Now we're gonna find out the part for number 14, which is probably just a hose connection. So I'm gonna look around, figure it out, and we'll go from there. And hopefully everything goes much faster now, because I think that was the last of the big parts that need to be bolted on.
Another thing worth mentioning on the t-shirt contest thing is a lot of my videos aren't very popular right now, so if you want to slide over and check out the other videos and comment on them, there's probably a good chance you could win a t-shirt there as well if nobody's keyed into the fact that there is a t-shirt contest going on. So there's your chance, there's your hint, pro tip of the day, something like that.
All right, so number 13 is right there. Number 14 is right here on the bottom of the radiator. I gotta take the temporary cover off and then stick this guy on.
The ones on the bottom, I believe, are the transmission coolant lines. And one thing I haven't done yet, which I'm actually going to do here very shortly, is I'm actually going to check the transmission fluid. I'm about to take the truck on like a 4,000-mile trip.
So number 13 was right here, which I believe is the transmission cooler line. Actually, coming back and looking at this, that's probably the same thing that this was over here. They're in that same bottom reservoir area. So yeah, transmission cooler line right there. All right, now that was 13. Let's go find step number 12.
Yeah, as I was saying, I'm about to take a 4,000-mile trip, and we should check that fluid. I'm not going to change the fluid. It's the one fluid in the vehicle I haven't changed. And I always get nervous changing transmission fluid.
And number 12 is right here. It's just this overflow tank. So we're just gonna go ahead and put that on.
I feel like it's one of those things where, like, you change it and the viscosity changes all the transmission plates, how they move together, and it starts slipping and the whole transmission goes. So I'll make sure the fluid level's topped off, but I don't know how I feel about changing it right now.
All right, so I've come to the conclusion that I just didn't write down the number, or I'm sorry, I skipped number 11 because I don't see an 11 anywhere. I don't see any bolts over my bin. So I'm gonna go, and if I find a part number 11 or something that's obviously not connected, then I'll connect it then. But I think that there is no step 11. I think I just skipped a number when I was writing things down, and that happens sometimes. So on with number 10, which is the fan shroud housing. We're gonna get that connected.
Nobody's perfect, me least of all. You try to be as meticulous as you can, but you might miss something, and then know, obviously when you're being real meticulous, everything gets really slow. So there's pros and cons to all the different methods you could have to doing something like this. That radiator fan shroud housing was actually a lot more difficult than I thought it should have been. Getting that back on. Obviously, it's taken me some time to get it reconnected.
Okay, so one quick little tip: the bolts. There's 4 of them, and I left the bottom one over on this side because it might be a little hard to see, but there's a hose down there that makes it difficult to get to. So I left that one in place, and well, I took that one out last, and then I did that one first, and I kind of fished it in by hand. I tightened it down all the way, then I realized really quickly that was too tight. There wasn't enough play to get the other bolts in, so then I loosened that one, and then I went and just threaded each one of them just a little bit so they were secure, and then I could maneuver the housing around a little bit, and that made it easy to get all the bolts on. Then I just racked them on down tight and called it a day for those. So that was step number 10. Now to find step number 9.
Getting down to the 10 count here. Good feeling. Getting everything done on a job like this, it's a good feeling to get everything done. Anytime you're doing a big job, it's sometimes in the middle it feels like you're never going to be done, and yeah, it was good to be done with this one. The hoses are obviously pretty simple to put back on, and I did check them as I was going to make sure they looked like they were in good shape. And at the time, even now, I don't really have the budget to replace every last little part. So if something looks like it was solid, looks like it was still going to last a while, I went ahead and put it back on.
Okay, that was step number 8. And I couldn't decide whether or not this hose went over this hose or this hose went over that hose. So I went this route for right now, and if I'm wrong, this one comes off easy enough and I can flip them around. So we'll find out when we get to step number 3. Okay, so in the meantime, that was step number 8. Let's find step number 7. Okay, so this was step number 7 and step number 6. But one thing back here, I just noticed this, and I've been kind of checking these as I go. I don't know if this video is going to show, but that hose has got a little bit of deterioration, which kind of doesn't surprise me. It's recording this in 2021, and this is a 2005, so this has probably never been replaced. And I could be wrong, but I think this is like an EGR valve or hose. Whatever it is, I'm gonna have to look it up and get that replaced later. It's not gonna make or break anything right now. It just connects to the air box, and I'll get a new one. But that was 7. This is 6. I'm gonna tighten this down and then figure out which one is number 5. And man, we're getting almost to the nitty gritty here. Pretty soon I'll be putting fluid back in this thing and starting it back up. Assuming that the battery's got a charge. Fingers crossed. All of them.
Yeah, I should probably replace that battery. It's getting a little long in the tooth. If you leave the lights on overnight, the battery's dead in the morning. It's just, any vehicle, that's not good. So about time to replace that. I do keep one of those like portable battery pack jumpers with me, and those work really well, especially when they're new.
Okay, so number 5 is right here. Get some light on that. All right, number 5 is right there. Number 4 is right here. And then number 3 is right there. I believe number 2 is the bumper, and number 1 is the brush guard down below. So we are almost there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and rock those last 5 things out and then start putting the fluid in.
The bumper itself, I made a separate video for that is forthcoming. I just figured the bumper is one of those things where you don't always see videos of how to do it. So I did the full step-by-step removal and installation, or at least installation, So stick around. That's a whole separate video. I'm going to skip that in today's video.
Well, as you can see, I did find out that this one goes underneath that one, and once everything's in place, they don't make any contact whatsoever, which is what was confusing me. The way that they were sitting previously, prior to putting the bolt on it, this thing just wanted to rub up against that one, and I was looking, I didn't see any signs of long-term marks between the two of them, so I was kind of confused. Well, this all makes sense now. There's the only rub point, is that point right there. So everything fits together, so now it's time to get started on the bumper.
Almost time to get started on the bumper. Put that cover plate back on, peel that piece of tape off when I'm done.
Alright, so I did end up finding number 11. Number 11, of course, is the front bumper right there. So I had it all along. I didn't skip it. I just didn't think the bumper counted. I thought I pulled it off much earlier. So that's it. That was number 11.
Goes to show, I was meticulous after the fact. I was just oblivious in finding the pieces and parts. So there it is. Again, another reminder, go ahead and check out the comments below, add a comment, and if you're less than 100, you're not going to win a t-shirt. If you're more than 100, you're not going to win a t-shirt. If you are the 100th non-consecutive comment, then you win a t-shirt. So comment below, and let's rake up those comments and go from there. You see, I taped all the parts on to keep them in place.
All right, hey, so I decided I'm gonna cut the bumper out of this video. I'm gonna make a separate video about how to install the bumper, and I'm gonna put that into the next video after this series. So if you wanna see that, you can just skip on ahead and see that, but you don't need to know how to do that to do the timing belt. And I'm not aware of any individual videos out there that show how to reinstall the bumper on a 2005 Toyota Sequoia. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to help other guys like me out in the future, so that they can get this done quickly, efficiently, and avoid any headaches that you might experience otherwise. So just snip, and we're going to go right back to putting fluid into the motor. Correction, we're going to go back to putting the brush guard on the motor. Correction, we're not going to put the brush guard on the motor. We're going to put the brush guard on the truck. I'm trying to talk fast. And there you go, and through the magic of having just put this bumper on in a different video, step number 11 is now done. And now, skip ahead to step number 1, which is the brush guard. That is the last piece of the puzzle. Put that down underneath, and then from there, we're going to put the fluid in and hook the battery back up, and then start it up. So hopefully the engine doesn't blow up. That would be a bad day.
It would be a very bad day. But it did not. It's been running just fine. So there, you can take that for what it's worth. I'm not a mechanic, but I did manage to get it done right. Just not quickly and efficiently. Here I am getting the bolts ready to go back in my traditional fashion, which is anti-seize lubricant so they don't rust in place and make it miserable next time you got to work on this. Just always trying to do myself a favor for future Dominic. So myself as future Dominic, having taken that off once more for an oil change, will now say thank you, past Dominic, if I make comments and talk to myself in my own video. Now, just like it's hanging right there, you could actually leave the brush guard hanging when you do an oil change instead of taking the whole thing off. And when I've taken it to shops to have the oil change done, that's actually what they do. They just leave it like that. I don't know if they put something underneath to kind of catch the oil or just kind of let it drip on there. I have no idea what they do for that part of the process, or if it just happens to miss. But to get the oil filter off, you can do that.
Okay, so that is all the parts finally put back in this bad boy. So now the next step is going to be to fill it full of coolant and then well that's sitting. It's actually up on jacks right now. So I'm gonna take it off the jack stand, set it down, and then I'll finish topping it off. I'm gonna put fluid in first while I'm doing this, and then I'll do it again once the vehicle levels out. So we're almost there. All right. Okay, one thing to note here, I got the actual Toyota 5050 super long life antifreeze. This is what's actually spec'd for this vehicle. And the reason I do that, again, I'm not a mechanic, but there's a podcast I listen to. It's the Hot Rod Farmer. Shout out to the Hot Rod Farmer. And he has some really great podcasts about using the actual factory spec'd antifreeze in your vehicle. There's a lot of reasons. I'm not an expert, I won't go into it, but as I recall, one of the reasons is sometimes some of the chemicals that are in some of the aftermarket brands, even the really good ones, some of those chemicals react with different components within the engine. This is specifically designed to not react negatively with any, say, rubbers or any of the compounds, metals inside the motor. So it should not deteriorate your motor. So I'm going with this and not like I think Valvoline, Xerox, or something like that's the version they have that's supposedly compatible. I'm going specifically with the Toyota antifreeze. So that's what I'm gonna do, and that would be my advice. I think it costs a little bit more. I think I got 3 of these and it was around $60 from the Toyota dealership. Also, you have to go to a Toyota dealership to get it, but that's what I'm doing. So here we go.
Yeah, and if you check in the comments or the description below, I should have a link to the Hot Rod Farmers podcast. He's a pretty cool guy and does podcast from New Jersey, where he's a farmer and just a gearhead, probably like a professor level gearhead. Really interesting podcast to listen to, and you gotta love that New Jersey accent. Just taking my time and letting it get in, gurgle out, not overflow. Make sure I don't do that. Don't do that. You can see right there in the drain that was going slow.
All right, so the guy at the Toyota dealership, when I got at the parts desk, he told me that I only needed 2 things of engine coolant when I'm doing a timing belt job, and I just went through 2 3/4, and the vehicle's still not sitting level, so there's a good chance that when I level the vehicle, we're gonna need even more. So at least 3. I'll let you know. I need at least 3 gallons. I think, assuming those are gallons. 3 containers of fluid.
The reason I assume it needs more there is I know for a fact that the vehicle is higher in the back than it is in the front. So when I bring it down and I lower it down, it was a good inch, maybe 2 inches higher in the back than it was in the front. And yeah, so you try to trust what they tell you at the dealership, but I don't know. Even the Toyota dealerships, I don't know if I trust any dealerships out there or any service departments at the dealerships. It's just one of those tough things to kind of gauge. Although they were trying to save me money, so that's not all bad.
Okay, so the truck's sitting level again. And let's see what's happening here. It's gone down a little bit. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. I'll show you where it's at right now. So fluid level is like pretty good. It's right up at the top there. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and reconnect the battery and then start it up. Assuming it'll start. Turn that around. There we go. Turn it on, see if it starts, and run it through some cycles, and fingers crossed that it doesn't blow up on me. I'm a little nervous. This is probably the biggest mechanic job I've ever done.
Yeah, still to this day, the biggest mechanic job I've ever done.
Okay, the battery's connected, and we're about to grab the keys and start it up and see what happens here. I'll just set the camera up here. Moment of truth. It's also the moment of truth on this battery. Well, that does not sound bad. All right, I'm gonna let it run for a moment. I'm gonna put away some tools, crack a garage door so I don't suffocate, and we'll let it see what happens. We're gonna warm it up and go from there. But I think I got it. All right, I'm geeked because this means I get to go on a snowboarding trip. Yeah. All right.
And let me tell you, that was an epic snowboarding trip. It was to a really awesome powdery resort place, whatever you want to call it, up in the Keweenaw Peninsula called Mount Bohemia, which I did a video about that. Check it out. I'll put a link in the description right here. And yeah, good times. Yeah. Super geeked to have had that job done and have moved on with my life. As it sits right now, I'm actually just starting to work on the kitchen system in the back of the truck, and those videos will be coming out. And hopefully they'll be a little more interesting and entertaining than what this has been. This has been definitely just more informational on how to put everything back together, you know, take it apart, do that whole process.
All right, so it's been running for a little while. The temperature gauge is climbing a little bit, and I don't know if it's going to show down in there, but there are bubbles coming out, so the bubbles are working their way out of the system and whatnot. So yeah, good sign. I'll show you the temperature gauge too real quick. So there's the temperature gauge right over there, and I don't know if it shows up all that well, but it's about halfway up the line, so that's a good sign. So one of the things I do is I always, every time I do a refuel, I always check the oil and kind of look around. But for the time being, I'm going to check when I do my engine compartment check. Whenever I fill the tank, I'm going to be checking, which is a Toyota Sequoia. I'm going to do that a lot. I'm going to be checking all of the fittings. I'm going to look at the thermostat. I'm going to be looking at these fittings. I'm going to check the fan bolts and just kind of make sure that those are tight, because I'm not 100% confident in that. And I'm going to reach in and grab all the little pulleys that I can and check all of them. And then when as long as there's not too much slush on the ground, I'll probably slide underneath, and I'm going to look at the fittings on the bottom for the transmission cooler and any other thing that's connected to the bottom of this particular radiator. So we'll go ahead and cover that back up. Yeah, so just check everything, check the bolts. Yeah, so, because, yeah, you don't want any of that to go loose while you're going. So, you know, it's always a good sign when you go over here and all the parts that are left over are basically just the parts that you bought, the replacement parts. So these are the old ones. That's a good feeling. The whole job being done is a good feeling. And I almost forgot that this particular kit comes with a mileage sticker, so that you can mark out the date and the mileage from when you replaced the timing belt. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. The mileage on this one, as I replace it, is 146,398, and of course today is the first. Actually, what is the date today? It's 29th of 21. So I'm gonna put this in. I don't think I'm gonna put it in the engine compartment. I'm actually gonna put it in the windshield next to where I do the oil change stuff, and I'm not gonna put it in right now because it is freaking cold, and I just don't like putting stickers on when it's really cold out. So there you go. This kit comes with that. I recommend putting it on. Just peace of mind and a reminder for the future when it comes time to replace it. Again, thanks for watching.
And the cleanup. And I'll tell you what, it is difficult to find a place to take the fluid back for recycling. The engine, the oil you can do, but not that. Okay, and then this is the next day after running it for the first time, after putting the timing belt on. And the fluid level in there, let's see if I can get it
good look at it. Still pretty good, topped off. And over here, it's a little low. The fill line, a little hard to see, but there's a fill line down there, and I'm gonna go ahead and fill it up to the fill line, which is, again, I'm trying to do this without blocking the light, but it's basically right about there. So we're gonna go ahead and fill it up and see, let it run for a few days and see how that goes.
Every time I've checked it since, it's been spot on, so everything seems to be working.
All right, and you can see the fluid is actually just a little bit high right now, but it took 3 and just a pinch of a 4th bottle, and still have some left over in the reservoir, which I'm going to put into my empty bottle right there, so I can go back and return and recycle it. So basically 3.1 gallons is how much coolant I used on this project. Again, thanks for watching, and you know the drill. Work hard, play hard, be a big softy when you get home.
This video you've been watching is on my main channel. I have a dedicated channel to just doing overland type stuff, whether it be a Jeep or Sequoia or anything like that. So if you want to see just that type of video, there's a link in the description below. Just go ahead and click on that and it'll take you over to that channel. You can subscribe there and see just these types of videos. Otherwise, subscribe here if you want to see, well, what you've been watching, and also mountain biking and whatever else I happen to throw up there. Again, thanks for watching. Work hard, play hard, be a big softy when you get home. And be sure to check out my online store where you can get van life t-shirts, Jeep shirts like this, mountain bike related t-shirts, and you can get hoodies and cool mountain bike t-shirts, Jeep and overlanding shirts, hoodies like this one. You can get cool shirts like this one, kids shirts too. The 100th person to comment on this video wins this shirt.